A good friend is someone who will tell you the things you should do, but also the things that you should not do in your life. And in this video, we will try to take the role of that good friend who will try to tell you the things not to do as an international student in Australia. And no, we are not going to talk about some of the typical things like working more than allowed hours, not paying attention to your studies, changing your courses without proper thought process, and not lodging your tax returns. These are some of the things we have already discussed in one of our videos, which we will talk about a bit later. But rather in this video, we will talk about other things that you should consider not doing as an international student. If you're ready, let's get into it. Before we get started, here's a quick disclaimer that I'm not a financial advisor or an accountant to give you advice on some of these things I'm going to mention. This information is general in nature, so you need to consider your personal circumstances when deciding some of the things we are going to mention in this video. So let's get into the first thing, which is about buying expensive gadgets and phones. Let's be honest, many of the students who come to Australia would like to get the most latest and the greatest phones available in the market. And there's nothing wrong about it if you have the money to pay it upfront. But the chances are that many of the students usually get into a contract plans, which are basically like a monthly payments of the phone and the phone plan, which can go over a period of a long time frame. It can be 12 months, 24 months, or 36 months. While $100 may not sound a lot of money at the start of your career here in Australia, if you think about that you have to pay it for over a period of 2 years or 3 years, then it is quite a substantial amount of money. So when you are considering to buy the newest available phone in the market, consider that whether you actually need it or is it just going to be a luxury item for yourself. So for example, if you really need it for your work purposes, like if you are going to need it for delivering food or you're gonna create a content with that device, then it makes perfect sense, then you might consider buying that. But if it's just going to be showing off to other people, then it might be just good idea to stick around until you have enough money to buy it outright if possible. I will tell you my personal experience as well. I have never gone on a contract or a plan for my life here in Australia, especially about the mobile phones. I always buy my mobile phones outright, and they are usually very good deals that come around during the year, in which you can save a fair bit of money. So consider that before you pull the pin on buying that expensive phone or some other gadgets as well. Going on to the second things not to do as an international student, which is about giving your TFN to everyone. So TFN is a tax file number. It is issued by Australian Taxation Office, and you need it if you're going to work in Australia, and also need it for you lodging your tax returns. But it is important to note that this number will be issued to you only once in your lifetime, and you should only disclose it to the people if you have already got the job. So usually when you get hired, they will give you this form called tax file declaration form, and that is the form you need to complete with your tax file number included in there. We actually have a video on how to complete that TFN declaration form, so if you want to complete that, we'll leave the link of that in the description box below. But it's very important that you should not give this number to everyone out there. It is your own kind of a secret number that only yourself or your accountant or your employer knows about it. So make sure to keep this number safe and secure. The next thing not to do in Australia as an international student will be to not paying attention to your credit score. So some of you may not know what is credit score. Credit score is basically a number between 0 to 1000 that tells the financial institutions like banks about your credit worthiness, which is a score about how likely you're gonna pay back the loan if you ever borrow the money. Now, as an international student in Australia, you may not be able to access all different type of loans available. But if you are going to stay in Australia for a decent time frame, and especially after your studies, and you might look for some borrowing or some loans, then this credit score will come into play a lot, because every time you're gonna go and ask for any borrowing out there, they are going to check your credit score. And if your credit score is low, they may not be giving you loans out there, or you might have to go to some of these other financial institutions that may charge you hefty interest rates because you don't have a good credit score. I actually know a friend of mine who struggled with this situation regarding credit score. For many years, he couldn't afford to take any loan even after he got his permanent residency because his credit score was quite low. Now, there is a lot of things that goes behind your credit score. I won't be able to explain that in this video, but we might think about creating that in the next future videos. students, but it's very important to pay attention to that credit score. You can check it for free on different websites. There are plenty of free websites out there where you can check your credit score. Now, the next point is about not doing gambling and investing in some scam investments. Some of you might be aware that the gambling for the person aged 18 or above is legal in Australia. So there are many websites, many online portals, and there are actually casinos out there in Australia where you can go and gamble, especially if you are aged above 18. And it can be sometimes really enticing to get into this thing, and before you realize, sometimes you would have lost so much money, and that can be really devastating for many students. Again, a personal experience of a friend of mine who had to go back to his home country because of his addiction with the gambling problem. He came on a student visa, but he got into gambling habit, and all the money he was getting from his parents to pay his fees, he was actually getting into his account, and he was using it for gambling purposes, which had a huge impact on his career here in Australia. And one thing we promise you here at Overseas Student Australia is that we will never promote any of the gambling apps or websites on our channels, whether it is on YouTube, on our website, or any other social media, especially until I'm in charge of this organization. Another thing you have to be mindful of is about your investments. There might be many investment opportunities you may have as an international student in Australia. I'm not going to mention any investments here, but what I have a suggestion for you is that make sure to do your research before you invest any money in any investment schemes out there. Now, you have to be careful enough that the money you're going to invest, you might actually risk it and you might even lose it as well. You may have all the good intentions out there, but just be mindful that there are some scammers out there who would like to take your money regardless of what you think. So I'm not suggesting you to invest or not to invest. What I have a suggestion for you is just be mindful and do your proper research and due diligence before investing any money out there. The next thing on our list about not to do things is eating too much outside. Now, there is nothing wrong about eating food outside. I do it personally myself at least a couple of times in a week. And it's just not about money as well when eating outside, because the chances that if you're eating out too often, you might be eating a lot of junk food out there. So it might be very easy to grab a quick burger, fries, pizzas, and some other junk food out there. So it's not only costing you money to eat outside, because it's usually a bit more expensive to eat outside, but you're also playing up with your health as well, because eating out the junk food is never a healthy thing. So my suggestion would be to consider learning some cooking before coming to Australia if you don't know how to cook. And when you are here, try to buy your own fresh groceries and try to do some of your own cooking yourself. You can cook your food in bulk as well if you're busy for a few days. So for example, you might cook for next 2-3 days in one day itself, and prepare your food in boxes so you can just grab and go whenever you have to go for your work or for your studies. But eating out too much is also a no-no thing. And last but not the least on our list is using buy now pay later schemes wrongly. Now, buy now pay later schemes has propped up in the last few years here in Australia. Some of you might be already aware about these buy now pay later schemes, and some of you might not have heard about this. But buy now pay later schemes actually divide your payments of an item into 4 installments. So let's say you want to buy a new phone. Instead of paying, let's say $1,000, they will say pay it in 4 installments of $250 each. While it might sound great that, okay, I'm not going to pay a full price, I'll just pay it in 4 installments. If you don't have money to pay it back within the time frame you have, again, you might end up paying extra penalties, higher interest rates, and so on. And don't even get started on talking about impact of credit score because of non-payments. So before you use any of the buy now pay later schemes, it's important to understand that you must have enough money to cover for that item anyways. So if you're buying a phone for $1,000, make sure you have at least $1,000 in your bank account already. So if it comes to the installments, you can easily pay it off. And if you don't have money to buy it outright straight away, then my suggestion would be to actually wait on until you have enough money saved up. Personally speaking, I don't have a buy now pay later scheme, but I know friends who actually use these services. These people actually have the funds programs available to pay these items outright as well. So they are managing these buy now pay later schemes really well. Again, you have to be careful when using these schemes of the interest rates and penalties and so on. So these were the top 6 things not to do as an international student in Australia. If you have been in Australia for a while, we would love to hear your thoughts. What do you think international students should not do when they arrive here in Australia, or if they are living here for a while as well? We would love to hear some suggestions from you in the comment section below. If you want to know some other things that can actually get deported from Australia, which we don't want that to happen, please check this video over here as I explain about the things not to do to get deported out from Australia. Very critical video that I highly recommend you to watch if you care about your student visa and your student life here in Australia. So go and check it out, and I'll see you there.